I'm standing in a boardroom, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest, facing the same people who once laughed at my dreams and called me a failure. But this time, I'm the one holding the keys to the kingdom. They can't even look me in the eye. How did I get here? From a girl who was never enough, to the woman who built an empire on the ashes of their doubts. Stick around. This is my story of sweet, silent revenge. Hello everyone. My name is Julie. I'm 28 years old, living in New York City, and I run my own tech startup that's now valued at over $50 million. Today, I want to share with you a very personal story from my life. One that's raw, real, and honestly, still gives me chills when I think about it. This isn't some made-up tale. It's what happened to me, from the depths of feeling worthless to the heights of proving everyone wrong. If you've ever been underestimated, betrayed, or made to feel like you're not enough, this one's for you. Maybe it'll touch your heart, inspire you, or even make you cheer out loud. So if you've ever dreamed of turning the tables on those who wronged you, hit that like button right now. Subscribe for more real-life stories like this, and let's dive in. Trust me, the payoff is worth it. Okay, let's go back to the very beginning, where it all started for me. I was born in a quiet little town in Ohio called Willow Creek, the kind of place where everyone knows your business, and the biggest excitement is the annual county fair. I was the middle child in a family of 5. 2 parents, an older sister, a younger brother, and me, stuck right in the middle like an afterthought. My dad was a mechanic at the local garage, grease-stained hands and a perpetual frown from long hours under car hoods. Mom taught 3rd grade at the elementary school, always grading papers late into the night, with a cup of lukewarm coffee by her side. They were good people, hard-working, but they had this unintentional way of making me feel like I was always falling short, like I was chasing a shadow that kept moving just out of reach. From as early as I can remember, maybe around age 7 or 8, the comparisons began creeping in like weeds in a garden. My older sister, Sarah, was the undisputed star of the family. She had this effortless grace, long, wavy hair that caught the sunlight just right, straight A's without breaking a sweat, and she won every beauty pageant she entered. The living room mantel was crowded with her trophies, gleaming under the dust that Mom never let settle. Then there was my younger brother, Jake, the baby of the family, with his infectious grin and natural athleticism. He was scoring goals in Little League soccer before he could tie his own shoes properly. And Dad would beam with pride at every game, slapping him on the back and saying, "That's my boy." And me, Julie? I was the try-hard, the one who had to work twice as hard for half the recognition. I wasn't pretty enough to turn heads like Sarah, not smart enough to breeze through tests without flashcards and all-nighters, and certainly not athletic enough to make the cut for any team beyond the benchwarmers. I can still picture one evening so clearly it feels like it happened yesterday. It was my 10th birthday, a milestone I was so excited about. We'd gathered around the kitchen table, the air thick with the scent of vanilla from the homemade cake Mom had baked. Candles flickered, casting dancing shadows on the walls papered with faded floral patterns. Everyone sang happy birthday, but as I blew out the candles, wishing silently for something I couldn't quite name, Sarah piped up about her upcoming recital. Before I knew it, Mom was pulling out a wrapped box, not for me, but for Sarah. "This is for your performance, sweetie," Mom said, handing her a shimmering new dress, the kind with sequins that sparkled like stars. My heart sank, a heavy weight plummeting into my stomach. I mustered the courage to ask, my voice small and tentative, "What about me? It's my birthday." Mom sighed, her eyes softening, but not enough to hide the exasperation. Julie, honey, Sarah needs it for her big day. Well, you're fine with what you have. Not everyone can be the star. You know, those words landed like a physical blow. Not the sharp sting of a slap, but a deep, aching bruise that spread through my chest. My throat tightened, hot tears pricking at the corners of my eyes, but I blinked them back fiercely. Inside, my mind was a whirlwind. Why am I never enough? What makes her so special, and me so ordinary? Do I have to change everything about myself to be seen? But on the outside, I just nodded, plastered on a fake smile that felt like it might crack my face, and retreated to my room. There, under the covers, I let the sobs come, muffling them in my pillow until it was damp and salty. That night, as the house quieted down, I made a silent vow to myself, staring up at the glow-in-the-dark stars on my ceiling. I'd prove them all wrong one day. I'd show them I was more than fine. Little did I know, that promise would become the fuel that powered me through years of heartache. As I grew older, school became another battlefield where my sense of worth was constantly under siege. By middle school, I was 12, navigating the awkward phase of braces that made my smile feel metallic and forced, and acne that dotted my face like unwelcome constellations no amount of drugstore cream could erase. My so-called best friend, Lisa, was the polar opposite. Blonde hair that fell in perfect waves, a laugh that drew people in like a magnet, and she was always at the center of the popular crowd. We were inseparable at first. We'd share secrets during recess, trade lunches in the cafeteria, even whisper about our first crushes under the bleachers. I trusted her completely, the way only kids do before the world teaches them caution. But then came the betrayal that shattered that trust into 1,000 irreparable pieces. There was this boy in our class named Tommy, cute, with freckles and a shy smile that made my stomach flip whenever he glanced my way. One rainy afternoon in the library, surrounded by the musty smell of old books and the soft patter of rain on the windows, I confided in Lisa. "I think I like Tommy," I whispered, my cheeks burning as I fiddled with the pencil. Her eyes lit up, and she promised to help me talk to him, swearing on our friendship bracelet that she'd be my wingwoman. I believed her, my heart soaring with hope. But the very next week, I walked into the bustling cafeteria, the clamor of trays and chatter filling the air, only to freeze in the doorway. There they were, Lisa and Tommy, holding hands across the table, her giggling as he leaned in to whisper something in her ear. The room spun for a moment, the fluorescent lights suddenly too bright, too harsh. My tray felt heavy in my hands, and I barely made it to a corner table before the tears started. When I confronted her later that day, in the empty hallway after school, my voice trembling with hurt, she just shrugged, her smirk cutting deeper than any words. "Julie, come on. You're sweet and all, but Tommy wants someone fun, not, average like you." Average. That word lodged in my brain like a splinter, festering and painful. My fists clenched at my sides, nails biting into my palms until they left red crescent moons. The betrayal burned hot in my chest, a fire that made it hard to breathe. How could she do this? After all our secrets, all our promises. Am I really that forgettable? From that day on, friendships felt fragile, like glass waiting to shatter. Group projects became minefields where others would steal my ideas and claim the credit. Parties were events where I'd be the last-minute invite, if invited at all. And the constant undercurrent of exclusion left me feeling powerless, like I was screaming into a void that swallowed every sound. High school only turned up the volume on that pain. By 16, I was desperately trying to carve out my identity in a sea of cliques and expectations. I threw myself into my studies, transforming my bedroom into a fortress of knowledge, stacks of textbooks on my desk, walls plastered with post-it notes of formulas and vocabulary words. I'd stay up until the wee hours, the glow of my lamp casting long shadows, my eyes burning from strain as I sipped cold coffee to stay awake. It was my way of fighting back, of proving I had value beyond what others saw on the surface. But even the teachers, who should have been allies, added to the doubt. Mr. Hargrove, my math teacher, a stern man in his 50s with a balding head and a scowl that seemed etched in stone, handed back a test I'd poured my soul into. I'd aced it. Every problem solved after weeks of practice problems and tutoring sessions I paid for with babysitting money. But instead of praise, he raised an eyebrow and said, loud enough for the class to hear, "Julie, this is quite surprising. I honestly didn't think you had it in you." His voice dripped with sarcasm, implying my success was some kind of anomaly, not the result of hard work. The classroom erupted in snickers, and I felt a flush creep up my neck. Heat blooming across my face like wildfire. My hands gripped the edges of my desk, knuckles turning white. Inside, a storm raged. Surprising? I've worked harder than anyone in this room. Why can't you see that? But I swallowed the words, channeling that fury into even more determination, vowing to make every doubter eat their skepticism. Family gatherings were the hardest pills to swallow, moments that should have been worn, but instead left me chilled to the bone. At 17, during our traditional Thanksgiving dinner, the table groaned under the weight of turkey, stuffing, and pies, the air rich with aromas that usually comforted me. But that year, Dad stood up with a glass of wine, his face lit with pride, to announce Sarah's full-ride scholarship to Stanford. The room exploded in cheers, claps, hugs, toasts all around. I clapped along, my smile tight, but when it was my turn to share, I mentioned my acceptance to a state university, complete with scholarships I'd earned through countless essays and volunteer hours. Jake, ever the joker, snorted into his mashed potatoes. "State school? That's cute, Em. At least you're trying, right?" Mom shushed him half-heartedly, but her eyes held that familiar mix of pity and doubt, like she expected no more from me. My fork clattered against the plate, the sharp sound cutting through the chatter. My throat constricted, words stuck like thorns I couldn't dislodge. "Trying? I've clawed my way here while you coasted. Why is my effort always diminished?" That night, back in my childhood bed, I lay awake, staring at the familiar cracks in the ceiling, the weight of it all pressing down like an invisible boulder. The underestimation, the casual disrespect, it all coalesced into a deep-seated frustration. But buried beneath the hurt, a spark of resolve flickered to life. Someday, they'll all see. Someday I'll rise so high they won't be able to ignore me anymore. College offered a fresh start, or so I hoped. At 19, I packed my bags and headed to New York University, majoring in computer science because coding felt like a sanctuary, logical, predictable, where effort directly translated to results without the bias of human judgment. The city was a whirlwind. Towering skyscrapers that blocked out the sky, the constant hum of traffic and sirens, the anonymity of crowds that both thrilled and intimidated me. My dorm room was tiny, shared with Vanessa, a trust fund kid from the Upper East Side who dripped with entitlement. She had designer clothes hanging in our shared closet, a sneer for anyone she deemed beneath her, and a habit of borrowing my things without asking. At first, I tried to be friendly, sharing snacks and study tips, but it quickly soured. She'd copy my homework verbatim, then trash-talk me to our mutual friends in the common room. "Julie's so boring," she'd say, her voice carrying like she wanted me to hear. Always buried in her laptop like her life depends on it. The breaking point came one stormy night before finals. Rain lashing against the window like angry fingers. Vanessa accidentally knocked a full cup of coffee onto my laptop while I was in the shower. The screen fizzled and died, taking my notes and projects with it. When I confronted her, dripping wet and furious, she laughed. A cold, brittle sound that echoed in the cramped space. "Oopsie, get over it, N. Not everyone can afford backups like I can." My hands trembled as I mopped up the mess, rage simmering like a pot about to boil over. My mind raced. This is it. No more being the doormat. I deserve better than this constant sabotage. That incident crystallized my resolve. I requested a room change the next day and dove deeper into my side projects. Apps I coded in stolen moments, solving everyday problems like organizing group studies or budgeting for cash-strapped students. It was my escape, my rebellion. Graduation at 22 thrust me into the corporate jungle. And oh, what a jungle it was. I landed a junior developer role at Technova, a mid-sized tech firm in the heart of Manhattan. The office was all glass walls and open-plan desks, buzzing with the click of keyboards and the aroma of overbrewed coffee. But my boss, Mr. Reynolds, a slick operator in his mid-40s, with a perpetual fake tan, gelled hair, and a smile that never reached his eyes, quickly became the antagonist in my story. He'd pilfer my ideas in team meetings, presenting them as his brilliant insights, while I sat there, seething silently. "Great work, everyone," he'd boom, winking at the male colleagues like they were in on some exclusive club. When I'd muster the courage to ask for credit in private, he'd pat my shoulder condescendingly, his cologne overwhelming. "Julie, relax. It's a man's world out here. Learn to play the game or get left behind." Then there were co-workers like Derek, the quintessential office bro, with his loud laughs and bro handshakes, who loved interrupting my presentations with jokes. "Careful there, Em. Don't break a nail typing all that code," he'd quip, eliciting chuckles from the room. The frustration built layer by layer, a pressure cooker of resentment. During lunch breaks, I'd escape to the bathroom stall, leaning against the cool tile, taking deep breaths to steady the shake in my hands. My internal voice was relentless. "You're smarter than this. Use their doubt as rocket fuel. Don't let them dim your light." The true turning point hit me like a thunderbolt at 24, during the annual company retreat in the Catskills. The air was crisp with pine scent, the lodge cozy with crackling fireplaces, but the atmosphere was tense for me. Reynolds announced promotions over a lavish dinner, the clink of glasses underscoring his words. I'd spearheaded a project that streamlined operations, saving the firm over $200,000 in costs. My code, my late nights, my innovation. But the promotion went to Derek, who clapped Reynolds on the back like old pals. Afterward, in the dimly lit hallway, Reynolds cornered me, his breath heavy with whiskey. "Julie, you're solid, but not quite leadership material. Too emotional, you know? Clients want steady hands." His grin was smug, eyes gleaming with condescension. In that moment, something inside me snapped. My vision tunneled, heart hammering against my ribs, like it wanted to escape. "Emotional? I'll show you what real power looks like." The humiliation burned, but it ignited a firestorm of determination. That night, in my hotel room, with its scratchy sheets and distant owl hoots. I paced the floor, thoughts swirling in a vortex. No more playing small. This is my breaking point. Time to build something they can't ignore. I quit Technova the following week, a decision that terrified me to my core. I cashed in my meager savings, rented a shoebox apartment in Brooklyn where the walls were thin and the radiator clanked like a ghost, and founded EmpowerTech. The early days were brutal. Endless rejections from investors who dismissed me with polite smiles. Nights staring at a dwindling bank account on my screen. Doubts whispering in the dark. What if they're right? What if you're not cut out for this? What if all that hard work leads nowhere? My hands would sweat during pitches, my voice occasionally wavering, but I pushed through, networking at every event, refining my apps until they shone. My first breakthrough was a productivity tool tailored for underrepresented professionals in tech, women, minorities, anyone who'd felt the sting of being overlooked. It featured AI-driven networking suggestions, bias check algorithms for resumes, and community forums for support. Word spread like wildfire. Downloads skyrocketed from a trickle to a torrent. By 25, I'd secured seed funding, hired my first employees, a diverse team who believed in the mission, and expanded to offices in NYC and LA. Every scar from my past, family doubts, friend betrayals, workplace sabotage, became building blocks. I turned betrayal into unbreakable resolve, underestimation into unyielding ambition. As EmpowerTech grew, so did my confidence. At 26, we launched a suite of tools that disrupted the market, earning features in tech magazines and invitations to speak at conferences. I'd stand on stages, spotlights hot on my skin, sharing my story in measured tones. But inside, triumph bubbled. The company valuation climbed, hitting $10 million, then 20, then soaring higher. I hired mentors, built a network of allies, and focused on creating a culture where no one felt not enough. But through it all, the fire from those early wounds kept burning, propelling me forward. And then at 28, the stars aligned for the ultimate payoff, the moment I'd visualized in my darkest hours. EmpowerTech had become a powerhouse, and opportunity knocked in the form of an acquisition. Technova, my old stomping ground, was floundering. Outdated software, mismanagement under Reynolds, and a string of lost clients. Their stock plummeted, whispers of bankruptcy circling like vultures. My team identified them as a strategic buy, ironic, poetic justice wrapped in a business deal. We swooped in with an offer they couldn't refuse, closing the acquisition in a sleek Manhattan boardroom. Floor-to-ceiling windows framing the glittering city skyline below. The air was thick with tension, the scent of fresh coffee mingling with the faint tang of desperation. Reynolds was there, looking a decade older, his tan faded, tie loosened, eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights. Derek sat beside him, fidgeting with his pen, gaze fixed on the table like it held salvation. As the lawyers droned on, I signed the papers with a steady hand, though adrenaline surged through my veins like electricity, making my pulse thunder in my ears. Reynolds cleared his throat, his voice hoarse and unsteady. "Julie, congratulations. We never saw this coming." His words hung in the air, laced with defeat, his eyes darting to the floor, unable to hold my gaze. Derek mumbled something incoherent, his face flushed with humiliation. I leaned back in the leather chair, a serene smile curving my lips, but inside, it was euphoria, a tense release of years of pent-up rage, relief cascading over me like a cool wave, validating every tear, every doubt I'd conquered. "Oh, I did," I replied softly, my tone even but edged with steel. I've been envisioning this for years. Every time you dismissed me, every stolen idea, it all led here. The room fell silent, the weight of their regret palpable. Reynolds' shoulders slumped. Derek's bravado evaporated. They were reduced to shadows of their former selves, humiliated without a single raised voice. But the corporate coup was just the appetizer. The real, deeply personal revenge unfolded back home during last Christmas. I'd sent courtesy invites to my family for a holiday party at my new penthouse in Manhattan. A sprawling space with panoramic views, marble floors, and art pieces I'd collected on travels. To my surprise, they all showed. Sarah, now divorced, and scraping by as a realtor in a sluggish market. Jake, unemployed after his pro sports dreams crashed, bouncing between odd jobs. Mom and Dad, retired but looking worn from years of favoritism's fallout. As they stepped off the elevator, jaws dropping at the opulence, the twinkling city lights beyond the windows, the catered spread of gourmet hors d'oeuvres, the soft jazz playing in the background, Sarah gawked openly. Julie, this place? How? I mean, wow. Her voice cracked with envy, eyes wide as she took in the designer furniture. Jake shuffled his feet, mumbling a half-hearted, "Congrats, sis," his gaze lingering on my Rolex and the original Warhol on the wall. Mom fidgeted with her purse. Dad cleared his throat repeatedly. Later, Dad pulled me aside into the study, the city hum a distant backdrop. "Julie, we might have been wrong about you all these years." His voice was low, eyes misty with what looked like genuine remorse, but the might stung like a half-apology. My heart swelled, not with lingering anger, but with a profound release, triumph mingling with forgiveness. I hugged him tightly, the scent of his old cologne familiar yet distant. "It's okay, Dad. I proved it to myself first." Their faces throughout the night, shocked, humbled, averting eyes when our successes were compared, were the silent revenge I'd craved. No dramatic confrontations, no bitter words, just me, living a life so grand, so unassailable, that their doubts reflected back on them like mirrors. The validation washed over me, healing old wounds, turning scars into badges of honor. Reflecting on this wild journey, I've learned that true justice isn't always loud or vengeful. Sometimes it's the quiet power of rising above, letting your success speak volumes while the doubters fade into the background. Karma has its own timeline, circling back when you least expect it. And real validation, it blooms from within, nurtured by your own resilience, not their approval. If you're listening and feeling that familiar sting of not being enough, remember, those scars aren't burdens. They're fuel for your fire. Turn the pain into purpose, the betrayal into unbreakable strength. What about you? Have you ever transformed your hurts into something extraordinary? Think on that. Wow, that was an emotional roller coaster, wasn't it? If this story fired you up, gave you chills, or made you pump your fist in victory, smash that like button and drop a comment below. What's the most satisfying revenge or comeback you've ever witnessed or pulled off? I love reading your stories. They inspire me too. And of course, subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss another real-life tale of triumph over the odds. Thanks so much for joining me today, everyone. Keep rising. Keep proving them wrong. Until next time, bye.